Welcome back to Stu Structures. We're here for another segment of building the Riverside shops, so stay tuned. So we're back to continue on with the Riverside shops. It's been a couple of weeks since I had a video out there. The snow and everything is wreaking havoc on my life here. So in any case, it's been a little while to be able to get out here and actually get some things accomplished. I told you all about my electrical issues earlier, a few episodes ago or whatever. But I ran some temporary cords out here, of several 100-foot cords out here. And then it snowed, about 18 inches on top. It's melted down to about a foot now, but I had an issue. I thought I had everything protected well, but something came loose somewhere, and it took me till today to figure out what was going on and get it fixed to where I have electric out here on a temporary basis again. So I'm back to building. So we're going to continue on with this Riverside shops. I have quite a bit to do. I've got the porches to do on the front. I've got the chimneys and vents to do on the roofs. We need to finish up the tar paper and stuff on the roofs. And I think I'm going to have to do a foundation board underneath the exterior walls too. And remember, this was on a riverbank, so there's stone supports on the river side of this building that support this structure. So I need to make some type of a terrain and figure out how I'm going to do the stone supports for one side of this structure as well. And and then there's the windows, the dresses and whatever I'm going to put in the windows of the shops, so it looks like they're not vacant shops. And so we still got a good bit to do with this building. So let's just jump into this and see how far we can get with this. Alright, so we left the roof kind of in this situation last week, so I need to trim this off and come back and put the the roofing on this other angle of this back side of the building. And remember, I talked about all the glue and how shiny it was, and basically what I'm going to do, you can see all this here, but before I come back and black paint all that, we've got the ridge caps on this and the angle building that we had to do. So I came back and just cut some real thin pieces, or real narrow pieces, and I'm gluing those on all those gaps here on the angle building and then on the upper building as well. And this is just the same material that basically I used to do the roofing. I just cut real narrow strips of the same stuff, put some Elmer's glue on the back side of it. I do pre-fold this in half first to make it easier to work with once it goes on the building. And then once all that's glued on there, that finishes up the seams. Now I've got to come back and cut off the extra length out on the ends of these. Basically that's those in place at this point. And now I just need a couple layers of black paint on everything to just get rid of the glue, shininess, and the ridge vents as well. And I just use this flat black paint. It's just something cheap enough. And I put one coat on there, and it didn't quite hide everything that I needed hid. So I did put a second coat, and by that coat, everything looked really good. Now the other things that I need on the roof are a chimney and a couple of standpipes or vents for stoves or whatever they heated the building with. And I have these parts from Teachy, so that's what I'm going to use. And I'm using this to do the mortar in the bricks of the chimney part of it. And basically I come through and paint the whole thing with the mortar color to begin with. And make sure there's a good thick layer down in all the joints. And then what I do is I find my brick color that I want to use on these, and I put this on second. A lot of people do things kind of in reverse, but this works good for me. And what I do is I take one of these makeup sponges and I just put a bunch of that red paint onto a little painter palette or something I can use, and I dab a little bit on the end of a makeup sponge and get it to the point where there's hardly any paint on there at all. And then I just come back and dab the faces of the bricks, not pressing down too hard because I don't want to get it down into the mortar lines. But then I just put it on the roof and I trace this out. You know, I'm going to cut a hole for this. I've tried sanding down angles on these to get them to sit in the roofs, and they just never sit right. So I'm going to cut a hole and slide this down in a little bit with some glue, and then look at the vertical lines to make sure it's straight up and down when you look at it from all four sides. Now the top of this will get painted some more later on. So for right now, I'm going to come back and put two vents in the building as well, the stovepipes. And I just find a drill bit about the same size as what the stovepipes were. And I'm going to come back and drill one in this real small store here off this edge, and then one in the back side of this other building here. And the pictures only really showed one, but I thought it needed that second one, and it does add extra interest. So I glue these on and then just come back and put some silver paint in them. And this is one, and here's the other one. And later I'll come back and add a little bit more black underneath the ridge of that and put this black. You can see where I did the edging around the bottom. And basically that's everything on the roofs that I need to have done. I need to touch up the paint around the edges of the roof a little bit, but we'll get to that at some point. Now the chimney, one thing I didn't think about before my last statement was I need to cut 4 of these pieces of flashing to go around the edges of the chimney so that the rainwater doesn't go down in around those. And once I glue those all in place and the flashings in place, I'm going to have to come back once more and touch these up with flat back paint. But in the building you can see here, this is the only picture I have of this side where it meets the river. And you can see that there's stone abutments that hold up the building because it's level on one side with the ground, but the other side sits over the riverbank. So I've got to come up with a way to make some type of terrain. And there's so much snow on it's hard to get into my barn right now, but I found this piece of regular styrofoam. And I like using open cell foam better, but this was laying here and I just decided, well, I'm going to make this out of this. So I put the building on top of it and cut the top edge away and angled it down. Now on the right hand side of this comes up to a bridge. So basically this is how the building will set on the edge of the riverbank at this point in time. And then I'll have to figure out how to do the stone. But you can see how it sets up off the riverbank in these two areas. So I'm going to have to come back and definitely add stone footers to this side of it. Now another thing I need to work on is the porches that go on the front of these stores. I found this real thin basswood, and really this is siding, but I'm going to turn it upside down because it's a nice scrap piece and I like to use scraps as much as possible. And I'm going to cut these two sides for the porch. Then I'm going to use a steel rule and an upside down X-Acto blade to come through and cut all the boards into the top edge of this porch. Now the store gets, several things. I mean, right now there's nothing in the windows, there's no doors, there's no glass in these. So I need to start coming back and putting the rest of the fronts together. And I have this package of real thin clear styrene. So I'm going to take these and cut out the storefront windows. And I just lay these in place behind them and mark with a X-Acto knife and cut these out to exact fit in these. And then I take the two of those and glue those into place behind the windows, and now we have glass in the windows. Now the inside those windows, there's going to be little platforms to support the goods that are shown through the windows. So I'm coming back here and just kind of measuring how wide those platforms and how tall the platforms will be. And basically I need to cut out these pieces for each of the storefronts. These two are just for one of the storefronts, and I've got to make a total of 4 of these. And I come back and glue the small piece as an angle, which will be on the door side of this, and the other sides will meet the front wall and the side walls of the stores. And then I'm using the same brown paint that I used on some of the other trim of the doors and such on the other building to paint these the same colors as is in the rest of the buildings. And once I get those all painted, now they're ready to glue into the building at this point in time. The other thing I'm missing is the front doors. And you know, I found these, they're really thick, but I think they'll work for what I need. And so they're a little tall for the opening. So I'm going to have to come back here and cut a little off the bottom side of these doors. But once I do that, they'll fit into the openings and they'll work just fine. So I put that same brown trim paint on the other side of these and come through and put glass behind the doors. Now those are ready to be mounted into the building itself. Now inside the windows, I'd showed you these little pieces of round stock that I cut on my cutter, weeks ago. And I'm going to come through and start gluing them together so that I can paint those and have those for inside the windows. The other thing I did was come through and find all this real small square stock, because what I'm going to do is the front porch will glue underneath the front side of the building, which will help hold it flat, because once I cut the boards in the top of it, it wants to buckle and kind of arch a little bit. So by gluing it under the doors, it'll be at the perfect level, but what that does is raises the rest of the building up. So I'm going to have to take these and paint them to a foundation color and then glue them under the edges of the building so that they all set at the same level as what the front porch raises it up in the air. So thank you for coming back and sharing this time with me. We've gotten a little more done on the Riverside shops. I just, with the weather and everything, we haven't had a real winter like this in years and years and years. This is kind of like it was when I grew up, and the greening of the earth, whatever. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm a conspiracy realist. In any case, we've got to continue on in the next video and see how far we can get with it in the next video. I'd like to finish this up soon because I've got another building that will finish up my main structures for the Belington area, and I'd like to start those modules this year and get them ready for next fall so I can show them here publicly to a couple of the events that happen here on a local level. As most of you know, I'm building specific places in time, and a lot of the buildings that I'm building were around the 1900 era. Some disappeared slightly before that, some slightly after that, but kind of generally that time period. And the local people here don't really have any idea at all about some of the history of our town here. So I'd like to put this out there for people to view and learn a little bit about what this town was like over 100 years ago. In any case, thanks again for coming back and sharing this time with me. I do appreciate it, and stay tuned for the next video. Hopefully it'll come out in about a week, and we can get on a roll a little more so with these. Thanks. Happy model railroading.